and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the Collider weekly podcast for all things animation, including news, reviews, and interviews, coming to you all the way from inside the Death Star 2. I'll be your co-host, Sean Paul Ellis, and joining me from the minds of Grabala, welcome my co-host, Dave Trumbore. David, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. We get good reception down here in these mines. I think we are down here in these mines, right? It's not like a weird cloud mining situation, is it?
No, this is definitely like a down. You're going for Kyber Crystals.
Oh, I don't even know where I am right now. Everything's
okay.
kind of a haze, and I can only hear out of one ear. And
can I ask then, how did you get down there?
well, it's a funny story actually. Abducted by Imperial, strong arms, and just dumped me here. Don't know where or when or how long it's been, but I've been here a long time. But how you doing?
I'm doing well, but
That's
I'm just kind of curious. Like, what did you do to frustrate those strong arms?
I yelled at a drive-through fast food restaurant. I raised my, it's my fault. I lost my temper, raised my voice, and next thing I knew, down here in Grabala, mining for something.
It's all about tone when it comes to ordering food.
In the Empire.
From anything in the Empire. I get it. We've all been there, Dave. We wish you the best of luck in getting out of the mines of Grabala.
Appreciate that.
Which I think is a hut. I think there's actually like a Grabala the Hut that this is in reference to.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either. They don't tell me much, believe it or not.
So
enforced labor.
So unbelievably weird. Oh, man, if that didn't strike a chord for anybody, don't worry about it. We're going to help you out with this one because we are, again, for the third week in a row, talking about Lego Star Wars. And this time we are getting into the Freemaker Adventures that came out in 2016.
Is it just me, or does Sean sound really tired of the fact that we're covering Lego Star Wars? What he said?
I'm going to be 100% real with you right now.
Yeah.
Over the last 3 weeks that we've been watching these, I have developed a twitch in my eye that I cannot get rid of. And every time, you would think I'd be excited about Star Wars. It's December. We have a new Star Wars movie, to complete this trilogy that's coming out in a couple days.
It's out right now as you're listening to this.
Well, I mean, it's out now when you're listening to it, but we're recording a couple days in advance.
We span space and time.
So Dave has seen it. I haven't seen it. I'm getting ready to go watch it, and you'd think that I'd be excited, but this twitch in my eye will just not go away.
I think I solved it, bud. You've actually got a little Lego restraining bolt popped in the corner of your eyelid there. I think that's what's causing it.
Oh, you mean these restraining bolts?
Yeah.
And then just toss them to the side. We'll get into that terrible joke in a minute.
Oh, I love that joke. It was my LOL.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, buddy.
That's the kind of episode this is going to be.
Yeah. Well, I think that's more Star Wars All-Stars, right?
Yeah.
For all the vignettes. But today
very few LOLs for that.
Yeah, very few LOLs. But before we get into All-Stars, let's talk about Freemakers. I don't know. What was it? It's not canon. It's Star Wars.
None of this matters.
Yeah, none of this matters. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I'll be okay is the too long, don't care. But thank you for your concern. I appreciate it. As a part of this, we're having an opportunity to really kind of, dig into a lot of these Disney Plus Star Wars that are coming out. Obviously, everybody has probably been paying Disney megabucks this year. They're having a ton of fun with it. Let's get into some of these lesser-known Lego Star Wars cross-branded properties to talk a little bit more about them. And if you're not 100% familiar with the Freemaker Adventures, we're going to turn this over to longtime friend and listener of the show, Bobby Anthem, to give you a quick synopsis of all of this. So, Bobby, take it away.
Told in the whimsically charged style that audiences have come to expect from Lego Star Wars Entertainment, the series stars the Freemakers, a family of scavengers who build and sell starships from the scoured debris of space battles strewn throughout the galaxy. When their youngest discovers a natural connection with the Force through an ancient artifact, the Kyber Saber, his world is turned upside down, and he and his family are thrown into an epic struggle against the Empire to restore peace and freedom to the galaxy. Throughout their adventures, the Freemakers explore new worlds, meet new and familiar faces, and learn the true value of what it means to be a family.
Thank you, Bobby. We love having you as a part of our Star Wars universe. And guess what? For anybody who's not familiar, most of this probably Star Wars legends. So don't worry about it. We're going to have fun and kind of talk a little bit about some of the things that are in here. To delve into Freemaker Adventures. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the LOL. No, I know that sounds a lot like a spaghetti western. Don't worry about it. We're going to talk about what we liked about the show, what didn't work for us, and then we're going to round it out with what we found funny, whether it was intentional or unintentional. A lot of people spent a lot of time from two major different brands that are out there working on something, collaborating. Let's see how it worked for us and how it didn't work for us. But we also want to pay respect to the people who put this together, and we want to laugh about some of the things that were involved. So Dave, to kick this off, the good. What did you really enjoy? What was the piece that you were just like, yes, this Freemaker Adventures is getting this right?
Sure, and to give you listeners out there kind of a grounding point of where we are going to be watching the Season 2 finale. I believe there were about 31 episodes of this series, and we watched Season 2 finale called Return of the Jedi. It was an 8.2 on IMDb. It's actually tied with the Season 2 Episode 9 episode, Flight of the Arrowhead. So we watched the Season 2 finale instead. It felt like a better place to kind of, they're wrapping up a whole season. We get to see the culmination of their story so far. So we decided to go with that one. And for me, some of the good stuff was, for this episode specifically, they start out with a recap of the events of the season so far, which was nice since we didn't watch anything else. We just watched this finale. So it's kind of like they take, 2 minutes to like recap what they've done, the situation that they're in, where they have to go from here, and what the stakes are, which was really nice. So I did appreciate that. I also, and we can talk about this before we get too far into it, because Sean raised some questions. I have some questions. If you watch any of the Lego anything, the characters are normally a very standard color of like Lego yellow, sometimes Lego Caucasian. We've watched other Lego Star Wars series in the last couple of weeks, and they have had a specific color to like a Luke Skywalker, a Leia Skywalker, a Han Solo. They all have the same kind of like color tone. The Freemaker family is decidedly different, at least on the screen. In my notes, I said, it's nice that the Freemaker family, they're people of color. And we haven't really seen that before in the Lego Star Wars. You don't see that a whole lot in Star Wars in general. So it's nice that they were people of color. But then Sean was like, well, are they though? So this is the conversation that I think we need to have now. Am I crazy, or did they look like people of color in the cartoon itself? And we can say people of like Lego color too. If we don't need to be talking about like racial like skin tones or whatever, they're definitely a different color of Lego minifigure, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, they looked like slightly tanner Caucasian people. And I think that Dave, you did a good job of kind of showing a photo, and we can post this on social media as well, that shows sort of the, some of the rebellion, like X-Wing fighters.
Familiar faces you're used to seeing, like Biggs or Jack or Luke.
Wedge. And so like you've got some of these characters that are there, and you can see sort of like the what I think I would call sort of the Caucasian Lego minifigure character. And then you see in the background, you see some additional people that are African American. They look like they are African American or black minifigures.
Right.
And so you can see that. And then you can see the Freemakers, and they're like right in the middle. And that is cool. And I like that. I looking at the screenshots and what was in the episode, I enjoyed seeing that. But then I think sort of maybe where Dave and I are kind of trying to figure this out is that we went and we looked at the actual minifigure toys that they're selling.
Like we mentioned, like everything in these Lego series, if they do their job right, you can go buy that toy off the shelf, whether it's a character, a costume, a starfighter, or whatever. And the characters don't quite line up with what you see on the screen.
Yeah, it's a little confusing. It's very confusing because even looking at Wikipedia and some of the other resources that they have, you don't see a lot necessarily about the actual color or the race or kind of understanding if they are people of color or not. And so that is kind of leaving it in a little bit of an open-ended question for us.
Yeah.
If somebody knows out there, we would love to find out.
Yeah, it'd be great because honestly, we had from watching the series, well, the one episode that we got, so maybe it's explained elsewhere, but Star Wars doesn't really do a great job of any kind of like racial backgrounds or things like that. They do fine with species, they do fine with planets that you come from or castes that you belong to. They don't do a great job with actual like racial politics. So I don't know if the Freemaker family is supposed to have any of that background that they talked about, or if they're just a different family of Lego minifigures that look different from other ones. So it was weird because at first I was like, that's really cool that they included that. But then the more we dug into it, it's kind of like, there's nothing else to that, and it's kind of superficial. So I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
Right.
And even the cast we dug into, right? There's some people of color, there's some not. So
Correct.
It wasn't even like a cohesive or coherent sort of anything. So I don't know. If you guys know, let us know, because we're dumb.
I mean, we're definitely trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, if it is something that is in there, if it was in an episode previously, obviously we only watched the one episode to make our snap decision. But visually, it was something we immediately recognized. It was intriguing, and we'd love to know more about it and understand and have that conversation.
Especially because they were a family unit. It wasn't just like one-off character, right? It wasn't just like we were just following a Lando or a Finn or a Rose. We were following a full family. So I was like, that's pretty cool. So that aspect of it I enjoyed too. What else was this about this show that you liked, like right off the bat?
Man, I'll say just the story for me.
Sure.
The story for me was pretty much the big highlight, because we have now watched, this is our third in the Lego Star Wars series. We've had some ups and downs, gang. We've been back and forth. We've been kind of volleying around a lot. And the challenging thing that they have for a lot of these story points is that they want to show you the exact same thing that you've seen previously, but they just want to show you it again in Lego form. Right. And we saw that last week with some of our droids. And being able to understand that and kind of seeing everything through R2-D2 or C-3PO's eyes. Again, I don't think either of those droids can carry a full show, but it is nice to kind of see them as the constants for all of these stories in terms of what they have that's here. This is the first time, and they make fun of it with the Return of the Jedi, where they actually integrate an interesting new story into an existing story while paying homage to exactly what's there, and just successfully running these two parallel storylines and not giving you a recap of the thing that you know that's very familiar and nostalgic. They actually improve upon and create and posit some new and interesting things along with it.
Yeah, and I'm with you there too, because it's what I want these side stories and spin-offs to be. It's what I want the movies to be. I want them to be their own thing that occur at the same time and place as some of the stories that we know, but don't feel so tethered and attached to those stories that we do know and love that they have to rehash scenes or like go out of their way to be like, remember this character? Look, there he is in the seat that you know from this other movie. Like, please get away from that.
Stop
and Freemaker
it.
does a good job of telling their own cohesive and central story. And then some of the things that you know happen kind of as tangents. And some of them are really funny. And some of them are just kind of like there to just keep the plot moving along. So I really like the fact that they did that. And this was the first time we've seen a series that stands on its own. Whereas, like Sean mentioned, previously, the other two just existed to kind of like put spins on existing material. So this was really well done.
Right. I think you and I both agree that the use of force powers in this is very intriguing, Dave. And the idea of bringing some of this kind of fun mythology forward into a Star Wars series. I can put the Lego brand aside. The Lego brand's not needed for this, but Star Wars, understanding the Force and sort of some of those powers and using that in an interesting fashion, which then kind of complements and brings in the Lego brand, I thought that was really smart and almost like genius in terms of how they were able to put that together. Like, duh.
Literally,
Of course they would have been able to assemble these blocks in a way that uses the Force. Like, it's a no-brainer. We've seen it in all the video games, in the movies. We've seen it in... and I'm talking about Lego properties. We've seen it in all these other Lego properties before. Yeah, just make them float and call it a force power. Done. Like, everybody gets to go to lunch.
It was really smart, and we've talked that the last two weeks, one of the strengths was or should have been the branding of both Lego and Star Wars coming together and taking the best of both of those worlds and merging them in a way that makes sense in these series. Freemaker, I think, does it the best, and it's because of what Sean just mentioned. You have everything in the world that's built of Lego bricks and pieces. You have everybody you have some people in the Star Wars world who are Force sensitive and can manipulate things through the use of the Force without directly touching them. Now, we've seen Force powers, all kinds of stuff over the years. Some new ones will be revealed to you in Rise of the Skywalker.
You son of a gun.
I do what you do every time you say Rise of the Skywalker instead of the Rise of Skywalker, and I just did the same thing. So there it is, kids.
It's a Jedi movie about baking bread, right?
Yeah, that's
all the whole thing. That's the whole thing.
Force yeast. Yeah, it's crazy. But you will get to see some new powers, and you have seen some new powers over the last few movies. Freemaker has yet another power.
Yeah.
It's specifically manipulating these bricks in order to build things, take them apart, and rebuild them into new things. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant. And like you mentioned, we've seen that in the Lego verse. That's kind of what the Lego movie is more or less all about. But the power of imagination, of being able to play with toys, take stuff apart, build it back together, either follow a blueprint like I did as a kid, or make your own creations like Sean did as a kid. You can do both. I mean, it's just unlimited sort of imagination power. And Freemaker centers their whole idea of this family and this kid around that concept. And I thought it was brilliantly done.
Right. I'll say we mentioned about the Freemakers and Rowan. I'll say that I like just the characters in this in general. They introduce this family unit, as we've mentioned, that are very fun. It's Rowan, who is force sensitive. We have Xander, who is kind of a builder, and he makes what they call uglies, which are these kind of just assembled ships, which they're not ugly. He calls them like Z-Wings. They're just things that he's assembling from scraps. Like it's what you as a kid would have done with all those parts if you were trying to build, just something random out of your imagination and have a good time with it. So.
Right, and this family is a group of, they call them scavengers, which I don't really like that. It has a negative connotation. They're basically they're like scrap dealers. They go out and they collect scrap and they repurpose stuff and they build stuff and they make stuff from it and then try to sell it back or just patch up what they already have and make it better. So I don't like calling them scavengers, even though I think their starship is like the Star Scavenger. But it's kind of like Rey. Like when we meet Rey in Force Awakens, she's essentially a scavenger, a scrap dealer. Very similar connotations to the Freemakers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the final is that we have the middle child. We have Cordy Freemaker.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a bummer because they really kind of describe her as just a tomboy and money conscious. And that doesn't really give her a lot to play with. She's there to be supportive, but also antagonistic of both of her brothers. I kind of wish that there was a little bit more depth to her, specifically her character.
I will say, stay tuned, listeners, for next week's episode when we talk about All-Stars, because they may or may not have something more for Cordy to do in the Star Wars / Lego universe, and it may or may not be canon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to spoil it. Not really.
You don't think? We'll talk about it next week.
Yeah. So just characters in general, we have what was it? We have such a weird robot that is a part of this. Which one?
Good Lord.
Yeah, I know. Just one of the droids we have. It was the MOC. Mm-hmm. Just created by Palpatine. He is a Imperial hunting droid. It's very cool to see just how crazy they go with this because they have a lot of fun with this, and it's awesome to kind of see what happens with this character and sort of the interaction that it has between MOC and Rowan towards the end of this particular episode, which I'm assuming is something that has been happening throughout most of season 2.
Yeah, and there's a lot of drama between Rowan and MOC and the Freemaker family and MOC. MOC, the droid itself, I will talk about in the next section of this discussion. But as far as the good section, I do like the idea that you have this like Imperial hunting droid who eventually stole a Kyber crystal from the Freemaker family and used it to secretly power up the Death Star 2, but the Rebels didn't know it was powered yet. That's where that thing comes from. Because if you remember in Return of the Jedi, the Rebels didn't know that Death Star 2 was active. They thought it was a incomplete battle station. They didn't think it was ready to go. But the plan was to make it look that way and then secretly have it powered up to wipe out the Rebel fleet all at one shot. Right. So if you ever ask the question, well, why didn't Rebels know that, or how did they power it up without the Rebels knowing it? Your answer in Legends is MOC and the Freemaker Adventures, because it's right there for you. So I thought that was cool.
Get that Kyber crystal out. Let's power it up.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah. Speaking of Kyber crystals, I liked Rowan's... He has his own innate ability that he can use to kind of float stuff around and blueprint, new things. But once he gets his hands on the Kyber saber, which apparently he had thrown into a lava pit on Sullust episodes earlier, and he was able to pull it right back out.
Legends.
Legends. Do what you want. He gets an augmented power. So at this point, he's just I love seeing a character who fully embraces the power that they have and actually enjoys it. It drives me crazy when you watch superhero stories oh God, I'm so fast. I can run faster than the speed of light and sound and everything else. What a drag. You're a superhero. Even if you're a super villain, at least embrace your power. I don't understand why people are so down on superpowers sometimes. And this kid loves it.
Did you was this a direct shot that you were taking at CW's The Flash?
No, it's just the first one that came to mind.
Gotcha.
Sorry, Flash.
But we're looking at you, Flash.
We are looking directly at you. There he goes. But yeah, so I love getting a chance to see Rowan embrace his power, use the Kyber saber, and then just wipe out an entire legion of stormtroopers by creating a metal robot arm that just just wipes them off the bridge. Just stuff like that was super fun. I really enjoyed that.
It's really enjoyable.
Yeah.
Anything else that you loved?
Yeah, you mentioned the final fight
Right.
between Rowan and MOC, and each of them kind of have their own Kyber Crystal sort of powers to pit against each other. The final fight was really cool because there's a tie-in to the moment in Return of the Jedi just before the Rebels blow up the station. There's a moment where, again, spoiler alert for a 30, 40-year-old movie, Vader intervenes, and he takes the full brunt of the Emperor's force lightning, picks the Emperor up, and chucks him over the the gangplank, whatever they're on, and tosses him into the core of the Death Star, presumably to his death. In this, we actually get to see the Emperor just falling while he's shooting force lightning, just falling in the background. And at first I was like, oh no, here comes the silly Emperor again. But it's because it was connecting back to the movie, and that is enough of a distraction for MOC that Rowan can get the upper hand and save the day. And then they also end the whole thing with a rescue by his family before the Rebels and the Millennium Falcon come in and actually blow up the Death Star too. So it was a nicely contained little mini story that just happened to happen in the periphery, in the side of what was going on in Return of the Jedi. Thought it was really well done.
Yeah, I thought it was all really well done. I was pleasantly surprised after finally 3 weeks of watching rehashed or uninteresting Star Wars pieces, or ones that kind of felt like maybe they were a little bit rushed,
right?
In a sense.
And how fun would it be to have your own Legos to reenact that final fight too? Because it was just the stage of it with the Death Star crystal in the background powering the whole thing up inside that massive echo chamber. That was a cool stage and a cool fight to reenact as a kid. So
who wouldn't want that? That seemed so awesome. Everything so toyetic in terms of what they have for this. Again, that's the big idea behind the synergy between these two brands, is that anything that you're watching that's on the screen, I'm sure at some point you can buy some type of a toy, a minifigure, a play set, something to kind of allow you to reenact these at home. Or, you know what? If you just have a bunch of spare Legos laying around, make it yourself.
Make your own.
You'll have fun
Make your
with
own
it.
story.
You'll still enjoy it. So.
Listen, kids, make your own story, put it on YouTube, get your parents' permission, make $1 billion.
Yeah.
Done. Just make sure it's not a Disney or a Star Wars thing, because they'll probably sue you and take your parents' house. Sorry.
Yikes.
Well,
I was going to say that went from positive affirmation to very dark real quick.
It's very practical information in this day of Disney owning everything, including your parents' house.
Yikes.
Coming to Disney Plus, your parents' house.
Isn't it like Smart House?
Well, basically, we're already there.
Gosh. So
Speaking
scary.
of bad stuff.
All right, let's get into some of the things that didn't work for us within this. Dave, what was your top thing that did not work for you?
I think we have the same top thing, and it's unfortunately a holdover from some of the things that didn't work in the previous series.
Yeah.
They bring back silly Palpatine.
Don't know why.
He's back.
Don't need him.
I mean, he's there to remind you of what happened in Return of the Jedi, but he's being silly. I don't need it.
Yeah.
I don't know why he's silly. If anything, make him more serious and terrifying.
Yeah. He never really feels like the true threat that he is in, I'll say, even in episode 3.
Sure.
Where
any of the previous movies. Yeah.
Yeah. Episode 3 where there's the big reveal, or even in Return of the Jedi where finally, he's using force lightning and attacking people. There's so much threat that he has that he's able to wield, and this was trading that for, let me spin around a couple times in a chair. Oh no, how can I do this if I'm in a squeaky chair? And thankfully, the only ray of sunshine coming out of this is that they are very short moments.
Very sparing. Yeah.
Very, very fleeting moments, and that's great. I'm a big fan of that.
And it was literally, again, just to he had those kind of dumb jokes, but he also set the stage oh man, everything's going great. The Rebel fleet's on their way. They don't know we're fully functional. We're going to blow them out of the sky. And my buddy Vader is bringing his son, who we're going to, sway to the dark side of the Force. Everything's going to be great. And then they show a brief...
Best day ever.
Best day ever. But then they show a brief introduction of setting that stage, just to remind you that that's going on while Rowan and the rest of the Freemaker family are having their own adventure. But it was just just silly Palpatine, man.
Yeah. I think the creators, they were quoted as saying that they wanted Palpatine to come off as an out-of-touch, detached upper management of the galaxy. Okay. Instead, it came off more childish and petulant.
He definitely was. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. I mean, and I get what they were shooting for. It's just when you have somebody who is that much of a threat, I think you do a huge disservice to then say, we're going to make that threat cutesy.
Yeah, and honestly, land. The joke with him, speaking of landing, the joke with him falling through the Death Star core, shooting Force lightning, would have been absolutely hysterical if I didn't know he was already like in the story.
Right.
You know, if they didn't have his little cutesy lines earlier, I would have lost it if I just saw him falling in the middle of that. I'd be like, that's the best thing ever. But they've already kind of like, you already knew he was there. So
something that did not hit for me is, I know I mentioned about sort of the idea of kind of rushing along the story in some cases. There were some moments in this that kind of felt very, Deus Ex Machina.
Sure.
Like they were there to kind of, speed or keep things moving. They were last minute realizations that people had, or, somebody reminding another person like, oh, we need that. And it's like, well, we got it right here. Bam, ready to go.
Yeah.
They're fun to see. I think I counted maybe 3 or 4 of them in this one episode alone. That's a lot. That kind of feels, I don't want to say like an egregious error, but it feels weighty, as if most of it was left up to chance.
Right, or it feels like you didn't pace yourself out enough throughout the course of the season to get to this point, to like set all those things up. But again, this is for a younger audience, so maybe it was just to kind of remind everybody, like, we have done these things, we just need to bring them all together now to do this one final thing. So for me, that wasn't as bad. It was kind of silly to be like, we have to get the Kyber saber, and like, oh, it still exists. I can sense it from all the way up here in space. Like, It's this tiny little crystal, and I'm sure it gives off a ton of energy, but like, can you feel it from space? Sure. They grab this thing, and then it's not only a weapon, right? It doubles as like, apparently, I like this and I don't like it at the same time.
Right. I'm with you on this one.
They change like the console of the ship that they're in to essentially make like a receiver for what's essentially a lightsaber. They call it the Kyber saber, but it's a lightsaber. So they change it, and then they just jam a lightsaber into it like a key to like turn something on, which doesn't even exactly work. So I was kind of just like, why was this the whole thing? I don't understand why it was the whole thing. That felt like it was a bit too much on the toy front for me. Like, buy this toy and you can do this thing. It also won't work, but who cares? Imagination.
It was also very frustrating to me because I know that Kyber Crystals are what is at the core and what helps power and create the lightsaber.
Yeah, lightsabers, the Death Star weapons, and all that kind of stuff.
But they wouldn't say lightsaber. They just kept saying Kyber saber over and over and over again. That felt weird and like a big miss for me because, honestly, if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, of course it's a Kyber crystal that powers a lightsaber, I guarantee you if you were to turn to somebody that's to the right and left of you and say that, they'd look at you like you're crazy. They just say, yeah, it's a lightsaber. A lightsaber is a lightsaber, and there's different color ones. That's it. But you don't realize that there's a whole path that a Jedi has to take to like find a Kyber crystal. And that's a big deal. And then in order for a Sith to be able to like corrupt one, like there's a whole process and thing that they have to go through. Not everybody has read all this stuff. And you know why? Legends. And we get it. We get it. There's a whole extended universe out there of all this stuff that's non-canon at this point. It's still fun. It's still enjoyable. But for the regular person watching this, they're going to think it's a lightsaber. Just call it a stupid lightsaber.
I think maybe the only reason they didn't do it, and again, listeners, let us know about this too, but I think maybe they just wanted to differentiate it and not make people think that Rowan was a Jedi, even though he straight meets up with Luke later on and is like, here's my powers. So I don't know. Yeah. Don't know why they make that distinction, but yeah, it was frustrating, and I don't know why.
And you know what? And again, I know that we have to caveat it with this, but maybe this feels earned if I had watched all, 30-something episodes over 2 seasons.
Or at least the 23 leading up to this episode or whatever.
Sure.
25, yeah.
Exactly. And so, but, for where we are right now and making this judgment, a lot of it just didn't feel earned. Some of it's obviously going to feel rushed. And the fact that they were able to have so many of those moments within one single episode kind of felt, as David mentioned, either they didn't pace it out, they didn't kind of budget their time accordingly in terms of what they were going to do. I feel like they could have had a lot of fun with this, but instead it was last minute realizations, which can sometimes be challenging in terms of storytelling.
And for me, these are still kind of minor things. Like I don't want to weigh down everything.
I'm just really nitpicking.
But I mean, it's the bad section. It's the stuff that didn't work. So they were minor to me. The only other minor stuff that I felt were some design issues. So a holdover from the previous 2 series that we watched. I don't like the Lego Death Star design. I think it looks cheap. I don't know what it is about it, but it looks like they like scrimped on stuff and just made like a paper Christmas tree ornament instead. I don't know. It just looks weird to me. And then speaking of design, that MOC design is creepy as hell. I don't like it. I don't like clear droids, I guess. And maybe that's, I don't know, droidist of me. Is there a term?
Dave, we've already talked about
droids.
Race, and we've talked about enough on this show already. For you to get angry about droids, and
I'm gonna make a stand against clear droids. Damn it!
Yeah, this is the line in the sand.
This is the line.
Dave dies on this hill on this episode.
MOC is supposed to kind of look creepy. It's supposed to be like an Imperial droid. It's kind of creepy looking.
Yeah.
This was my first introduction to that design. He's got like this crazy ship that he kind of flies around in, and then he fights against Rowan in this kind of like weird, almost like spider tank thing at the end. And I was just like, I wouldn't want to buy that toy. That's really all it is.
Oh,
like,
really?
Yeah, I looked at that toy. I was just like, nah, I wouldn't want to buy that. That just looked weird. It looked like a knockoff. It looked like somebody else from, Star Combat series. Like that, it was a clear droid from that series. You can't call it a droid even. But yeah.
Okay.
No, I don't know. Just a minor thing. It just bugged me.
All right. Fair enough.
That's it.
Anything else in terms of bad?
No, that was really it. Just minor design stuff and some story issues, but really pretty well done across the board.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
So let's get into some of these LOLs that we have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do these LOLs. What made you laugh out loud? What did you
particular
enjoy?
droid. I don't hate all droids, only the clear ones.
Really?
So we have Roger, who's a former battle droid from way back in the day from the prequels, still hanging around Return of the Jedi.
Yikes.
Roger's hanging out with the crew. We'll talk about him in another week, so stay tuned for that. We have to. We're contractually obligated to.
Damn
so,
it.
Roger's hanging out with them. He's got a couple one-liners that are kind of, some are on the order of like Jar Jar Binks level, but every once in a while he's pretty funny. So when Rowan has to remake one of their ships, Roger comes up to him as he's like concentrating on like crafting this entire ship in the air, like not touching it, but moving all the pieces around telepathically or whatever. Roger's like, if you have a minute, if you could make the droid charging station just like a little bit wider, just so I don't bump my elbows and shoulders, that'd be great. And he's like, if you could, it's not a big deal. But then he's very excited about the fact that Rowan does that for him. And I thought that was cute.
Yeah. I will say my whole campaign is minimize Roger's character as much as possible.
That's going to be a rough go next week.
Oh, you know it is, buddy.
It's all Roger, all the time, all star.
Pretty bad. Yeah, you definitely... I see what you're saying about some of these, and I think that Roger can be a cutesy, kind of endearing character every once in a while with some of these jokes. At the same time, no.
Yeah.
just get rid of him. Just get rid of him.
I see. Now the tables have turned.
Yeah.
So you're an anti-Roger.
I am.
You yell at me for being anti-clear.
Very anti-Roger.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. He is.
What else made you laugh in this one, though, if Roger didn't?
Yeah, Xander has a couple lines where they're jumping into the cockpit of a ship and they're blasting off, and he just says, "Hold on to your bricks." And I thought that was a fun merger of kind of, referencing Star Wars and, not being able to say like, "Hold on to your butts" or anything like that, but just getting into it. I like that. That was the first time I was kind of like, oh, okay. Well, we definitely had a moment with Xander as well, where there is a character that comes up that I guess has been a character previously. Her name is Becky Smoochenbacher.
Smoochenbacher, yep.
Smoochenbacher. Great name.
Mm-hmm.
Great name.
Even better hair.
Yeah, even better hair. I don't understand how Smoochenbacher plays into the larger Star Wars, but again, legends. So doesn't matter. I think it's a very fun name, and I think it's kind of cute.
I liked it too, because I like when she reveals herself as a... She's an Empire, Imperial, whatever, officer on the Death Star too. Yeah, she's in like the all black suit with the helmet and everything. But she comes in and sort of rescues the Freemaker family, but she takes her helmet off and does the like, sways the hair back and forth in slow motion as like beautiful music swells behind her. And I just thought that was hilarious because it's in Lego form. So like she's just got this like solid mass of hair that just kind of slides back and forth. It's really funny to see.
I will actually say I feel like a lot of my LOLs came from sort of some of the animation. They did a great job incorporating the animation in this to feel a little bit more like it was from the Lego movie itself.
Yeah.
In terms of how the faces were animated, about how they reacted.
The little jokes in between.
Yeah,
Yep.
Some of the humor that was in here felt very enjoyable and very fun. And I think along that lines, there are some very funny Stormtrooper bits that you and I both really, really enjoyed.
There were. Yeah, just in general for me, I kind of like them. There was one with like the Imperial Guards. I liked that they oiled the Emperor's chair. I thought that was kind of funny. I know you didn't like that because of the Emperor.
It's funny.
But that was funny. Did you have any specific things from the Stormtroopers or just their like general banter?
I mean, just some of their general banter, the moment where, I think it was Cordy was about to push a button and they're just like, well, don't push that button.
Yeah.
The exchange is, don't push the button. Well, what do you do if I push that button? The guy goes, well, I was gonna shoot you. And all the rest of the other Stormtroopers are like, don't tell her that. And he's like, what? I was just being honest. And she pushes the button, releases the door. All three of the Stormtroopers fall down to supposedly their doom. Yeah.
The Emperor's pit.
Yeah.
Where everybody ends up.
Sarlacc pit.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
And in the weird, but a Sarlacc at the bottom of a Death Star 2 core.
It's
weird place for it.
It's just powered by its like kinetic energy of just moving around through sand.
No, this checks out.
Yeah. Space
just
science.
a nice big desert beach at the bottom of the Death Star 2 core, just full of Sarlaccs.
Why wouldn't you want it?
Why wouldn't you want it?
Yeah, that's where Boba presumably is at this point.
I like that. I like the idea that Boba was still in the Sarlacc pit, and then like the Death Star 2 just came down and like, cat litter scooped him up and just kept the pit and the Sarlacc and Boba just in the bottom of the Death Star 2. Fun fact: Death Star 2 just a giant pooper scooper.
I like
for the
that.
Universe.
That's great. Just scooping up Mandalorians.
Exactly. Just wherever they may roam, just grab them, scoop them up, sift them out.
Easy.
Oh, there was another Stormtrooper line. I thought this was from the other series. This was again, the Freemakers are running from something. One of them actually gets hit by a Stormtrooper blast from a Stormtrooper who's like laying prone on the ground, just like you'd think he's completely out of it. And he's like, hey, I actually hit what I was aiming for. And then he immediately passes out.
Yeah.
So Stormtroopers are always the butt of jokes. Even in the recent Mandalorian episodes, they had a couple jabs at them too. Right. So, oh, well, you're the grunts of the Empire. That's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny when Bill Burr does it. And guess what?
Yes.
Surprise, surprise. It's funny when it comes from one of these Stormtroopers because everybody gets one. It's good to see that actually happen. Any other fun jokes or things that you enjoyed? Any other LOLs, Dave?
I think that's it for me. I mentioned the Palpatine one earlier. I really like that. I could watch that again and again. Just Palpatine just silently falling through space with the Force lightning going. It's pretty good. That's it. How about you, bud?
No, I think that's probably it for me. I mean, just a lot of like small moments, really well done, kind of incorporated into, the larger story.
Fair enough.
But I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Alrighty.
Let's get into our recommendations. For anybody who is a first-time listener or needs a little refresher on this, don't worry about it. We'll help you out. We can recommend a cartoon. We can say this is a great use of your time, and we can tell you why. We can also say that we don't recommend it, spend your time elsewhere, and we'll give you a justification. And then finally, if we say we don't recommend something, we can go one step further, and we can give this the Roger Rabbit style dip. Yeah, that dip from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. We can erase a cartoon.
That's right.
That's the power of this podcast. Yeah, that's recognized only encapsulated within the show in general.
It's canon.
It's canon. Don't worry about it. So for tonight, for the Freemaker Adventures, Lego Star Wars, Dave, what is your recommendation? How are you feeling about this show?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. We didn't get to see much of it. We only saw the season 2 finale, but from what we did see, really enjoyed it. Again, to recap, it's the first Lego Star Wars series that we've seen that has an original story that also ties into the mythology that we know, but also incorporates both Lego humor and Star Wars lore. So with that in mind, I recommend it. How about you?
I'm in the same boat. I
Nice.
thought that this was an extremely competent, very sophisticated, and well-integrated storyline. You have new characters that are in here as well, and kind of from, understanding what is actually available in this show. I know that we've got crime lords. I know that we have actual reoccurring characters from the Empire. In fact, a self-proclaimed Sith that appears at some point in time. We've got a bunch of bounty hunters that are in here too. So I'm actually kind of on board with going back and watching all the episodes of this.
And they're all on Disney Plus, so check them out.
It's pretty fun. I don't know. Got some time off around the holidays.
Woo.
Might be watching this.
I really Sean's gonna self-stream live stream him in his Christmas PJs with a Lego set, building it while watching Freemaker Adventures. You can just watch him do that all day on Christmas.
Yeah, don't put up the Netflix, just the fireplace, or don't even start a fireplace. Don't even worry about even owning a fireplace. Overrated anyway. Just put on a live stream of me in my PJs putting together Lego sets.
In front of his own fireplace. There's your fireplace. Sean's got it for you. Don't worry about it.
Just a bearskin rug, me on top of it. Ooh. It's a faux bear rug. Don't worry about it. Right. Let's everybody chill out. Well, that is going to do it for this episode. We want to give a big shout out, if you can hear us all the way across the universe, to our friend Bobby Anthem. You heard him on this episode. You can also hear him on his paranormal podcast, Inhuman Experience, with his co-host Bobby Blades. You can find them on Twitter at IEXP_podcast. And Bobby has a solo show that goes in the same stream. So yeah, if you find Inhuman Experience, you also get 2 shows for the price of 1 subscribe. That new show is called In Search of My Lost Soul. I think right now there's 9 episodes out of it. It's dynamite. I really love it. Start with the first episode. Treat yourself over the holiday season as somebody who's going through some awesome reflection and understanding where they are in life. It's a wonderful story. I enjoy it. So thank you, Bobby, as always. Dave, what do you got going on?
Same old stuff, bud. You can find me over on Collider.com. Check me out on Twitter at DrClawMD. And if you still need a last-minute holiday gift for you and yours, check out The Science of Breaking Bad, my relatively new book from MIT Press. How about you, bud? What's going on?
Man, as always, I perform live improv comedy in Washington, D.C. with a group that's called Nox. That's NOX ! You can find tickets and times at witdc.org. And remember, that's Nox. It's not Nox Shop if you go on Instagram. Nox Shop, it is an adult marital aid store for sex toys.
So we're in the process of buying that domain.
No, we're not. I love it. I love the fact that something that I've been performing in for 8 years is also a sex toy shop on Instagram
you guys
and
need
the
to
internet.
Do a partnership together.
I love it so much. It is so good. It is so wonderful. You can find me also on Twitter and Instagram at Sean Paul Ellis. Help me get off Instagram. Help me get off Twitter. I don't know. I'll be there anyway, so no worries. Just at me and ask me a question. I'll show up. I'm like Beetlejuice. If you just at me 3 times, I appear. I just appear. It's frightening and also fun. But hey, want to support this show? Yeah, this show you just listened to. Tell a friend, review us on Apple iTunes. We have no freaking idea if that helps or if it even makes a difference. Everybody else says it. We feel like we should too. To the people who have recommended us and given us a review, thank you guys so much. You are the best. Want to talk to us? Yeah, just slide into our DMs on Twitter at Morning Tunes. Drop us a message and find us on Instagram and Facebook at Saturday Morning Cartoons. Remember, gang, that's morning with a U. You can drop us an old-fashioned email, SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com. You can find all of these links that we've mentioned, even all the episodes that we've watched, some of our guests that we've had that have been on. You can even find a way to suggest a cartoon so that we'll watch it in the new year. It's in the link tree of our bio, which is a weird looking link that looks like it says the word link tree. Don't worry, it's not spam, Mom. Just click on it anyway. It'll take you to a page that has a whole bunch of buttons. You'll figure it out. You're an adult. I believe in you. You can always listen to our show on any of these following platforms: YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, anywhere fine podcasts are sold. Thank you guys so much. We have one more episode left in 2019. One more episode, and we're going to do it next week, and we've already alluded to what it is. We're going to be watching Lego Star Wars All-Stars. Why are we doing this to ourselves? Make it stop. This feels like Transformers Month 3 years ago, where I lost my mind.
That has left scars. Continued to this day.
I go to therapy for this stuff.
Oh, God.
This is hard.
Head on.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Happy holidays. See you next time. Head on.
Head on.
Hey, everybody. Thanks a lot for listening to Saturday Morning Cartoons. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to transform and roll out.